computer. And this says day 4. I'm still not sure if we've had 4 classes or 5 classes. I haven't figured that out yet. Eventually, I'm sure I will figure it out. If one of you remembers, please let me know. However, today we're going to talk about wireframes, demos, collaterals, and home pages. And we're also going to talk a little bit about pitching, because I think as we get closer to the end of term and as you folks step on a stage more and more, the things that you talk about are going to matter more. So one of the things I want to remind everyone, and I think you've all had this feeling already, a founder is not and is never just a founder. I have done marketing, analytics, writing, distribution, coding, probably juggling at some point as a founder, and it is whatever you are able to do. If you're a solopreneur, it is a much harder lift, but seeing this year there being real teams, like all of you have a C-suite, all of you have a co-founder or a team, and so it is not just you being a founder, but it is, as founders, stepping up and finding the verticals that you excel at the most. Okay. Now, where you're at, as far as I know, like, I watch your slide decks, I listen to you present, I listen to you talk. One of my favorite things in startup is the Berkus method. I assume Ellen has shown you this chart before, but now that you are going concerns, you don't have to use this abstractly. You're real companies. This is now a real measurement of your success. So 2 of you that are here, the groups that are here tonight, have a sound idea. That's $500,000. 1 of you I know has a software platform being built out, and I believe the other team is working on theirs. As soon as that is secured, that's another $500,000. You all have quality management teams that you can weave a narrative around. That's $500,000. Strategic relationships. Okay. Ashwin, I've seen a little bit more on your slides as to who you've been working with and the relationships you've built, both with brands and with local entities. Rama and Andreas, I know you've been focused on something very key. So like, if strategic relationships may be something else that we want to roll out as we go. And then product rollout or sales. I mean, I know that you're not quite there yet, but Ashwin, you actually have sales. So like, if you think about this, Ashwin, you're at what? You're at 2 million, 2.5 million. Karama, you're at 1.5 million, 2 million, according to the Berkus method. So like, having a concept of where you're at when it comes to valuation is incredibly important, because valuation methods are key to this program. Now, that could be a sale. It could be early access registration. It could be MVP creation and testing. It could be a lot of discovery. You've probably heard me say these words before, but as I've watched you all, you've built out this validation. And to another point, and I don't list it here, another thing is being invited, being asked, pitching, and presenting. And Andreas, I know you've been presenting as a group overseas. That's a huge accomplishment. So when you do your next slide deck for the school, put those logos on a slide. Ashwin, you have a great slide when it comes to showing what you've already done. And those are validation methods too. When you don't have customers, or even when you have early customers, if you're getting invited to Saudi Arabia, you better believe that's validation, right? So what is validation? Can you pre-sell it? Can you sell a basic item and build it up over time? Can you make a Kickstarter or release a video that allows your audience to drive traffic? Can you get them to purchase? Okay, tons of discovery and interview data is used to make all of these considerations. But what can you do in your head that goes, I validated this? Because that, as much as you're performing for me and for Ellen and investors, as a founder, what is the validation to you, right? As a founder, at least when I was in it and I was young, you talk all day about what you're going to do, and sometimes you don't get around to doing it. Or when you do it, it's not quite what you thought it was going to be. So like, internally establish a benchmark for your group, for yourself. What is validation to you? And then get there, because if you get challenged on validation, you have to believe the answer you give. Right? There's an old Seinfeld joke, and I think some of you are probably too young or from an area where Seinfeld may not have played, but remember, Jerry, it's not a lie if you believe it. And that is just a trite comment on, if you believe it's validation, it's gonna sound like you believe it's validation. You're gonna have confidence. You're gonna extrapolate past your point. Those are important things to be able to do. Now, have I shown you folks the Dropbox video? I know I showed you My Pet Go, but I'm not sure if I ever showed you the Dropbox video. Okay, I am gonna see if I can remember how to turn on the audio, share sound. Okay, I want to stress this, okay? This is a terrible video. Okay, it's not well made. The founder of Dropbox made this before they had a real software product. And I'm just going to play it for you.
You've been there. You're about to buy lunch and realize your wallet is in your other pants. Or maybe you left your keys at home. The problem is organization. You need one place for everything, like a magic pocket. Putting something in the magic pocket means it's always there, no matter what you wear or where you are. The same thing is true for computers. If you have more than one, keeping track of all of your files can be a pain. Solving this problem is one of the big ideas behind Dropbox. It's like a magic pocket, a single, secure place for all of your stuff. Let's meet Josh, who is preparing for a big trip to Africa. Right now, all of his trip info is spread across his laptop, desktop, and phone. He needs to consolidate it all and is tired of having to email files to himself or move them around with a USB drive. Then he found Dropbox, which creates a new kind of folder on his computers. These folders work hard to be exactly alike, even across Macs and PCs. By adding his itinerary to his laptop Dropbox, he can be sure the same file will show up in his desktop Dropbox and even on his phone. The same thing happens when he saves a document in a Dropbox folder. The document gets updated across all of his Dropboxes. But it's not just his computers. The Dropbox website also works to be exactly like his other Dropboxes. Anything he puts in Dropbox is available on the website automatically. This way, if his Jeep takes a dive and his computer is ruined, he can still get to his files on the Dropbox website, where they're always backed up. As it turns out, Josh's Safari was a success, and his laptop made it home with lots of videos and photos to share. Instead of emailing everything, he just shared a Dropbox folder with his mom, so she could get copies of photos she wants to frame. Because it worked so well for travel, Josh made Dropbox the home for all of his stuff, so it's accessible anytime, wherever he goes. Whether you're traveling the world, running a business, or simply organizing your life, Dropbox means you can stop worrying about managing files and backups and get on with your next adventure. You can download Dropbox now at getdropbox.com.
So I'm going to point something out. That video is so old that they still had a get.com. Okay, this was not a real company. Dropbox was not real at that point. And here's the thing. Do you notice how bad that video is? That's actual paper. That's cutouts at his hand. They raised money with that. That's all they really had, was a concept in a video. And that video talks about a magic pocket and how it works hard and how it's seamless and how it's like, at no point in time do they really pitch you in that, but they incept you with all of the knowledge around what it is. They validate the idea for you in your brain. And that video there's no software in there. There's nothing in there. That's not real, but it doesn't matter because they raised money with that. That's validation. Okay, so think about, what you're presenting and recognize that it does not have to be as complex as it sometimes seems. And, the production value of what you create does not need to be, the level of Apple. This launched a company. It raised them money. It allowed one of the largest file sharing services in the world to exist. And I can tell you that the founder made that with paper, but you can do product mock-ups, you can do advertisements, you can do logos, you can do a fully explained idea in a video like this. You can get those content pieces made, you can make them yourself, but there's a lot of services that you can use. And this is another example that I gave you guys earlier in the career where for at least a year, this was not a real company and I seemed like a crazy person. wearing an aluminum foil hat, which I don't know if that translates to a global joke, but it works in North America and hopefully you get it. And if you don't, I'm sorry. But like it might just be a lie of Big Ten foil, sure. But at the end of the day, like this was completely fake. And they likely just hired graphic designers from sites like Fiverr and any other, 99 Designs, Balsamic, Adobe Premiere, stock photos, and they put those together to make something like this. They put those together to make things like this, right? Tiny little extras that are not a huge amount of money or that you can accomplish yourself and can take your presentations to the next level. Ashwin, the demo of your product, at the end of it, you were like, oh, it's a little long and it kind of goes very fast. No, don't say those words. Just keep talking impressively while I see your cool software in the background. And yeah, make a couple of talking points about it, but don't denigrate it because that very simple video is conveying something at a very high level. Okay. And there's multiple ways to make it when you can't make it. Okay. InVision app is a software piece that lets you use essentially high graphic images and create links between different images so it can give the experience of the software. You could use something like Adobe XD to create the wireframes of how you want your site to function internally before you give it to a developer. If you want to make simple videos, Adobe Premiere, like all the Adobe suite has a student pricing model, right? It's still not a great price, but it's the best price that you're going to get for a Creative Suite, and it will give you all the tools as a student that you would have access to. Okay. Now, you can also hire experts, Upwork, Fiverr. You do not need to be a master of, graphic design to make a product layout. You don't have to be a top tier coder to make that kind of a video that Ash would put together. If you want to, you can work with creative experts to make on a budget very simple collateral that can be used on your website, can be used when you email pitches, can be used as the background running for your software or your presentation. Audrius, when you talk about the way the software works, when you show me screenshots of it, even a tiny bit of animation, right, can take it a long way. But I will say, and I want to give credit where credit is due, the way that your team, and I don't need to know who did it, but the way that your team was able to break down that AI slide into the baby and the AI visuals, you absolutely nailed what we talked about last class. That's the kind of stuff that really changes the narrative. Okay. And not everyone is comfortable in making those kind of assets, so sometimes hiring an expert can take you a long way, and it's something I've done in the past. One of the things that I did in the day was 99 Designs. When you're building a full website, and I know some people don't like 99 Designs, and ethically I don't know how I feel about it because it's the concept of bidding on work and it's a little exploitive, but it does get your brain moving. If you want to design an entire website and have a high quality visual and you don't know what you're doing, you can come here, you can get bids on finding a designer to build your website or to build your brand for you. There is a monetary compensation to it, but if you're building something for high level, paying a designer $1,000, $2,000 to get a website design that has branding, that has images, that has a distinct look and feel is kind of worth it. To the point that I've built entire websites off designs from 99 Designs and then ran those sites for significant periods of time. So you don't have to be an expert because, as I said at the start of this, a founder is not just a founder, but a founder cannot be everything. Okay. You are blessed with teams, and hopefully your teams have a diverse range of skills, but at the end of the day, spend a little bit of money when you need to, find experts that you can work with, find resources that you can work with, and you will go a much farther distance. Pitch decks. This is kind of getting into my stuff around pitching. I've got a set of best pitch decks. You can find them on the internet, and it's just different pitch decks from different companies, Dropbox, Tinder, Airbnb. And, you go through these decks and, they're not amazing, right? Like looking at Tinder's deck that they raised money with. Does this blow anyone's hair back? No, but it looks real, doesn't it? And so this was a graphic designer that made this through the platform. It does not have to be incredibly complicated when you distill it down, when you talk to an audience. And you'll notice if you go through any of these, okay, what you will probably end up seeing is really similar decks. And to the point of one of my favorite decks is a terrible deck. And I have favorite decks. I know that's weird. This is the seed deck template from Y Combinator. It is a black and white slide deck. It is not impressive. I'm going to make my screen bigger so we can hopefully all see it. Seed deck template, a template that tells you how to build a seed deck. Founders build bad seed decks. They waste a huge amount of time. Bad seed decks mean they don't raise the money they need. No money means companies are forced to survive on revenue. Our template solves that problem. How does it do it? It's fast to use, simple to explain, and it improves the lives and cleans teeth. Does it do that? Who knows? It doesn't matter. You're trying to sound impressive and be succinct, okay? All companies are using us. Decks created per month. You, generally speaking, if you're having any amount of uptick with your user base when you get there, hockey stick graphs are your friends. Investors really love a hockey stick graph, and I'm sure that there's probably a more universal term for it, but it just swoops up in a big way. Ellen's a big fan of them. Money raised thanks to our deck. Look, it's another one of these very simple to understand charts. Ashwin, to your point last time, simplest is kind of best. Yes, you could change a visual, but if you give them the same dog food they eat every day, it's easier for them to consume, not to be denigrating to investors. Our decks work because of science. Time to create decks is 90% less. It's approved. We pick better color schemes. Have you heard the power of paper? Blah, blah, blah. We make money on every deck. Future growth, the team, what we need. This is a black and white deck. It still covers the bases of what you will speak to when you present. And I know you're already speaking, but the longer your presentation, obviously, the more you get to talk about, the shorter the presentation, the more you have to refine it. But when you're looking at a deck like this, which is a basic element deck, and you look at all of these high-end fancy decks, remember that they are the same thing. Okay? And I showed you a terrible video from Dropbox. It still raised money because you're taking an acceptable visual, an acceptable story, and you're giving it an amazing narrative, right? Pitching is, in and of itself, Finley, you didn't put the thing where you wanted it to. There you go. You're telling a story, right? You're starting in an exposition. You have rising action. You have a climax. You have falling action. You have a resolution, right? These are the elements of any good story. And when you are pitching, you are giving me the problem. You're making me understand it. You're making me feel that pain. You're showing me how you solve the problem, how you're the team. And my conclusion becomes, well, you're the best. I should clearly be using you. And so in any of your pitches, whatever deck you're going to use, whatever visual you're going to create, just remember in the back of your head that you're telling a story and a narrative, and that's what the audience will connect with. When you give me a character like Sarah, I'm going to listen to the story, right? And so any way you can humanize that problem is definitely going to be worth it for you. And find where I was before I had to skip ahead because I have terrible, terrible layouts. Okay, so at this point, we've talked about funnels a little bit, okay, quite a bit. Landing pages, Ashwin, you've gotten to 26 different interactions. You've got a lot of discovery that is not digital, but your funnel has been good. From IT, I know you've been pitching and presenting. In the next little bit, if we can look at website creation or funnel creation, and start to do a little bit of advertisement just to appease the university, right? Something that shows some data collected, some attempts made there. Again, validation for you can be very different, but I know there is a certain level of you've run an ad, you used a website, you used a landing page. School kind of likes to do a checkbox on. And the funnel for that, as we've talked about this whole time, is the founders, the team, the community, paid advertisement, Twitter, email, X. Twitter changed its name, right? It might be a landing page, it might be a lead page. It also might be time for you to develop, Ashwin, I think you're probably there, a website. Okay, not a landing page, but something that is more holistically larger and has a grander concept. Okay, but here's the thing. Landing page is a part of the funnel. Your site is just going to sub in for that. Right? So a landing page is to test an idea or a concept, a loose component that you want to see. Does this motivate them? The way that Meredith is currently doing different styles of testing in an A/B test, right? Those are disposable sites. Nothing there is real. But now some of you are at a stage where you are real. Okay. And it becomes a matter of slotting in the website that you may build to get where you want to be going. Now, a website versus a landing page. Obviously, there's more pages on it, right? It's not just one page. Okay, there's also more potential. You have more time to talk about the team, about the people, about the product, about the problem. However, there's also more distractions. So you don't want to add every bell and whistle under the sun. You don't want your site to be some kind of monstrosity of the internet. Be extremely targeted. And this is coming from someone that has built startup sites before, and I'll spend 3 hours, writing out in a Word template what I want and then building it. And I've got like 20 pages that I don't need, when realistically all I needed was a landing page and then a team page and then a contact us page, 3 pages max. That's what I think I needed. Whatever you need to sell your product, you can now do it in a way that, on a site gives you more area to do it. But one of the things that I caution every student on every single year is, if you are going to build a website at this stage, or you've already been building a website, do not go whole hog into outlining everything and making it super descript. And you can spend a lot of time developing content that no one might ever read. So a website is just to be treated like a landing page, in that you are going to push traffic to it. And then you're going to gauge what that traffic does via analytics, see where they go, see what they read, see how long they spend on the site. There's multiple, places you can build a website. To this day, Assured, God love them, is still running a website that is based in WordPress and uses the Elementor theme with a $349 a year usage license. And that's their entire corporate site. This is a company that's raised into the mid six figures. They are literally using a $350 piece of software to make their site. And they could have done it with the free version if they'd been a little cheaper and a little bit more creative with how they wrote code. But this right here is a good site. Right? This kind of walks you through the software, what they do, what they have for sale, the chance to buy, a call to action, a video, a piece of interaction that keeps them on the site longer, value statements, their story, the timeline. Notice how some of these are very similar to the elements of a deck, right? And where is my Finley? Yeah, so order matters in your website and in your presentations. I believe the Y Combinator method is to go over, title, who you are, problem, solution, traction or validation, market, competition, vision, team, use of funds. Okay, that's the Y Combinator style of pitching. Y Combinator being an accelerator in the States, and that very sparse deck that I showed you. I think Ellen tends to pitch more problem, team, solution, validation, stage of development, competition, business model. I think those are some of the elements that she likes to see from just having done this for a few years. Now, that being said, the order in which you place these is ultimately up to you and the narrative that you weave. I don't think team should be the second slide you talk to me about, because I don't know you and I don't know what's going on. But, when you're pitching, when you're presenting, you start to think about the order. But this same order, this telling of the narrative, it's really similar to how you build a website. Like, if I get to your website and I don't know what you're doing in the top scroll area, what used to be called, and I assume still is called, above the fold. It's a newspaper term from when you had a folded newspaper. Anything above the fold tends to be where people will look first. And so, when I talk about unique selling proposition, okay, that magic pocket concept of Dropbox, right? Calling it a magic pocket does not explain the technology behind it. It does not explain the high level of it. But what it does do is it explains in a very basic concept. Yeah, above the fold still exists. I'm that old. getting that basic concept out there in a simple way. A magic pocket is the most dumbed down version of explaining what Dropbox is. And the longer that you do this, the more dumbed down you become able to make it. And there's a fine line between being too dumb and being too high level. You know, I think Assured, when they talk about the future of phishing, is Assured. Well, there's a nice joke in there because Assured, haha. But fishermen have been taking steps to minimize impact on right whales, but consumer regulatory demand more. Like, this tells you the story. Because here's the thing: when you pitch and when you present, this website also becomes a component of your brand identity. When you present on the last day of your class at St. Mary's, when you do that presentation, I guarantee you someone in the room opens their phone and goes to your .com, your .ca, your .whatever, tries to find you online. And, you know, all they're going to see, or all they should see, is something that confirms their understanding that you're giving them that day. And so understanding your pitch and your narrative really factors into the content that goes onto a website, which is probably a weird way to discuss websites, but I think the narrative concept is valid even there, right? You don't use the words maybe, but you weave a narrative from top to bottom of a website. Now, pitching rules for me: stay on target, script and repeat, time your pitches, to the point that I have never done a university presentation without a phone sitting on my desk in front of me when I'm pitching at the podium, running a timer. Every single presentation I do that matters, I am running my own timer in front of me because I need to be mindful of it. And if you're doing a team-based presentation at any point in time, it becomes even more important that there's a consistent timer directly in front of you so that everyone can be mindful of that, okay? Audrius, you do a fantastic job of this. Speak as yourself, okay? Put passion in there. Put yourself in there. Again, and Meredith was good on this when she called me on, like, does it matter to put this point in there? Like, well, if you're the one explaining it and you speak as yourself and you come off as an expert, you know, that is an important part of the pitch. Showing who you are shows the team part of that presentation, not just on a slide, but the whole way through. Come up with common questions. And I've seen a few of you do this in your presentations. You have slides that are extra material that allow you to address common questions. Keep doing that. Okay. When you get to the final presentation of this, if you've done enough presentations, you'll probably have most of the questions have their own slide, and you can just go to it and show them the answer. Learn the answers to the common questions. I don't mean this in a mean way. This is not a comment about this cohort, but in previous years, there's like sometimes one person that learns like a bunch of the answers and then they don't always share them, or the other people in the group don't always pull answers. One of the things that I know Ellen likes seeing, and that the presenters likes, or the audience likes seeing every year, is every member of the group answering a question. Okay, so Rama, if you know all of the answers and you answer once and you answer twice, and then Khalid answers once and Audrius doesn't get to, that's not great. Then it's not a criticism of you, that's just a hypothetical. Audrius, the same statement can be made. If you answer all the questions and Khalid and Rama have no chance to say anything, it does count against you. So make sure that you are comfortable with answers, all of you, okay? And then make sure when you're doing the presentation, specifically the last presentation, that you make sure you cycle through the group and you make sure everyone has a chance to answer a question. And that is just old man Finley having been through the program and thinking that it's good to know that, because Ellen doesn't always tell you. Deck rules. I have very specific taste in presentation decks. No walls of text. All of you have transitioned this term from having a lot of words on your presentations to having graphics, to having bullet points, to telling a narrative between those bullet points. I've seen you all be able to incorporate this more and more. Stay on target is important. I'm notorious for this. Audrius, I think you're bad for it too, potentially, where you just kind of get on a tangent and you let yourself go a little bit and then you got to reel it back. And dude, hi, I'm right there with you. Stay on target is sometimes hard when you're very passionate about it. No or little screenshots of the software. Every one of you is doing this right, by the way. You're showing just enough of the software that I care, but not so much of the software that I don't want to see it anymore. And Ashwin, I will say the way that you did that demo very quickly, you're not making me dive into it too deeply. The speed at which you show it to me and the fact that at the end it's not as important, get the important stuff at the beginning, continue your narrative off and on. And I've seen all of you do this the whole way through, leveraging images, graphics, timelines. Timelines, I'm going to quirk you all on at the end of this because I think timelines are awesome. And, icons and images matter. I know I've chirped you on the watermark on Sarah's face before. Drives me nuts as a presenter because I think it means that you don't have the money to buy it. And maybe you don't. That's totally fine. Swap the photo. Flat icon is a place that I go all the time. Flat icon is basically just a collection of tiny symbol-based content, right? So if you wanted to do teamwork, boom, a bunch of free graphics that you can use that establish teamwork, right? And it's not critically important, but I will say that if you need those little icons beside bullet points, this is tends to be a free source of where you can get those. Now, templates, okay, I have the YCC template here. I have Slide Carnival, which is a great place to find additional slide templates. I like a template because it lets you see what other people do and lets you ideate. And I will close out with, as every class I seem to have done this with you all, a slide that I think is important in your pitch deck, okay? Clearly, I'm making this a theme, one a class. I didn't originally plan this, but now it's a thing. Neat. I think milestones allow you to show a lot of data in one slide, okay? Because you can show me a milestones deck that shows me events gone to. You can have logos in the background. You can have logos to the bottom. You can have logos along the bottom of everything that you've accomplished and the people that you've worked with. There's a lot of window dressing that can go around a milestone or a timeline that you put into your deck, right? And there's a lot of different ways to leverage that. You can show me, what stage you're at. You can show me how much money you've raised. You can show me when you started. You can show me what you're planning in the future when you get my money. All of that is conveyed through one timeline or multiple timelines, right? So by drawing this out, you get to show visually where you were, where you are, where you're going, and you answer some very important questions in there. Why am I giving you money? What have you done so far that you should have my money as an investor? And then one of the most important questions to investors that I don't see nearly enough in decks, because oftentimes people just go, and that's where we're at the end of a presentation, and open it up for questions. Why are you presenting to me? Do you need $1 million? What are you going to do with that $1 million? You can show that in a milestones perspective or a timeline perspective to show me what comes next. At this stage of where we're at today, what we need is $500,000, and that will carry us for the next 6 months. And as you can see here in this milestone chart, you'll see where we go in those next 6 months with the money that we would be raising today. And you don't have to give, you should have some idea of, like, if someone was to go, what do you need in a room? Like some rich person's like, what do you need? And you need $250,000, you got to say it. And you got to know why it's $250,000. You got to know where that money is going to go to. You don't need to do that in a deck. You don't need to be as granular as that in a deck. But if you're asking, ask. And if you're going to ask, show me what you're going to do with it. And a timeline is a great way to do that. And I will stop on that point there. It's about 6:25. I think we're about an hour. Wait, 5 to 6 hour and 20 minutes. Cool. We would have been a little bit longer if there were more folks here, but I'm gonna stop the recording and open it up for questions, comments, or concerns, or just a sprint to the door for freedom. All of that is fine with